years ago, AI answered question. Today, AI agents plan, execute calls API, write codes, trigger workflows, and operate with increasingly autonomy. And the question today is no longer what can AI do? The real question is who is in control? Are we building systems faster than we can understand, or we can regulate or govern them? And so this is what this month's topic of C-Suite Corner with MJ is all about. Power, autonomy, and control. Are AI agents moving faster than we can govern them? So I will start by stop sharing my screen right now and move properly to the Q&A questions where we'll be asking our panelists the real question of the day. So the first question is going to Scott. Are AI agents evolving faster than our ability to build safe control mechanism? That's the first question. I watched the way for one, I'm using Codex. I'm using the OpenAI that just came out. I'm using Claude. I've tried a bit of all of these. Well, they're quite very wonderful. But the question that is on everyone's lips is, are AI agents evolving faster than our ability to build safe control mechanism? So can I get your thoughts on that, Scott?
I don't think that it is that they are evolving themselves. I think it is that the ways and the usages in which we are using them is in unexpected ways. If you think about the progression between putting code into a chatbot, between a chatbot getting the ability to call tools, and then being able to call tools in a loop, it is a direction-seeking, intent-seeking thing that will never stop. So I think what surprised people about agents is they will do the thing you asked by any means necessary. They're not smart, but they're like ants. You point them in a direction, and those ants are going to stand up, and they're going to march in that direction. They're going to push everything out of the way. They're going to go around it. They're going to lift it up, and they will never stop. And I think that the persistence of AI agents when doing intent-seeking behavior surprised us all. And I think about it in the context of multiple layers of the network. Let's make sure that we watch our microphones. There's some overlap there. We may have to mute some folks. There we go. If you think about like layer 7, you've got like the 7 layers of networking that we all learned in school. I think there's a theoretical layer 8 that we need to think about, which is the semantic layer, almost like a virus scanner for bad intent, because I want the agent to be able to delete my email. I just don't want it to delete all my email. And that's not something that you can detect kind of at the network. So we're going to have an explosion of sophistication around detection of malintent. But I don't think that it's not that they're moving faster. It's that we are, as humans, not adapting in time. Yeah, there's a semantic layer, David.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. But it sounds quite very optimistic. And sometimes, I mean, I love the part of the angle of the semantic layer, which we have really not, I mean, a lot of us have not even taken thought of, or probably even when we take thought of it, we have not really thinking deeply into how we can start looking into how those fits our business process and all of that, or even bringing it in as something that we can leverage on right now. So I'm still on that question really, but I'm going to move to Dr. Milton. From a governance lag perspective, do you think industry are being honest about any form of limitation we're actually experiencing or we're going to experience with this AI agent evolution?
It's a good question. And I'm going to piggyback off of something that Scott said as well. I look at it from two different audiences, if you will. if you look at the general population, AI is probably evolving much faster than they ever imagined. People tell me almost every day that they just can't keep up. There's something new out, and there's still people using AI as generative AI as it came out as far as ChatGPT did back in November 2022. They're still prompting it the same way. And then you got other people who are working with AI, like software developers and things like that. They're like loving the vibe. Give me more, give me more. I can do agentic agents out there, let them do all this coding and all of that. And it's moving at a great pace, but you know, that maybe they would like it to move even faster. And so you sort of have these 2 points of view, the struggling, but just looking at historically, this technology is evolving exponentially much faster than any technology that we've worked with in the past. And that is something that we're going to grapple with, right? So, and this will get me into the governance piece. The question is, you know, if AI is changing almost weekly, if not even more frequently, you know, how do we corporations grapple with velocity? You know, how do we deal with that dimension of velocity, right? So I'm going to go out, I'm going to implement something, and then before you know it, I get it out. It takes me 6 months to implement it, 3 months to get it rolled out or something. And then when you get it all rolled out and you're ready to go, you train your staff, you train the teams, everybody's ready, it's changed again. So what do
Mm,
you do with that, right? How do you deal with that? And so this leads me into the governance is not there,
mm,
right? And so we can roll out AI. The governance is lagging way, way behind. And this is why you see so many companies implementing AI because of fear of missing out, only to find out that they're not reaching their targets. It's not giving them what they would like to achieve. We just saw this with Klarna that said that they're going to replace all their agents, customer service reps with AI. And it was a big deal. You know, they rolled it all out and things like that. And then they found out that they just recently announced they're going to have to start scaling back because their customers are not happy with some of the responses. And the question is, from a governance perspective, what was their intent? Right? Their intent was to speed up responses and get it down from, say, 11, 12, 13 minutes down to 2 minutes. But they forgot about the quality of the response and for those
mhm,
customers that have been with them a long time. And so if you don't have these governance layer, right, in place, you run into these things because you're not understanding, if you will, what is the intent that we're trying to do, and why are we rolling it out? I personally don't think that the governance layer, well, the governance layer inside of corporations can keep up, but we're going to have to focus on it. Governance more broadly, I don't see that happening for a while where it's going to keep up because we all have to work together internationally, and we're still in compete mode like we do with all products. You know, I'm going to compete with you. I'm going to get a better LLM. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. I'm going to do agents. You're going to do that. You know, I'm going to steal your content from distillations, or I'm going to. And so while we're doing that, the governance is falling way, way behind. And so
mm,
I think we have some work to do. By the way, it's not dire straits at this point.
mm,
We can still get our arms around it. We will evolve. We always do. But we're going to go through some turbulence over the next couple of years. And I'll end with this. I love what Scott said about the semantic layer. I would go to layer 9 and add in the abstract layer, right? If we can look at the abstract and then focus on patterns, just like AI does at its core, then it doesn't matter what the changes. It doesn't matter which model is leading at this point in time. We know that we got a job to solve. You know, what's the best model? What's the best agent? What's the best whatever to deal with that? And we'll do this based on patterns, right? Not based on, I need this agent to do this, or I need this LLM to do that. What is it that I'm trying to solve? Intent. What governance layers should I put in place? And then let's let that pattern take over. And you can change it often as you want. It doesn't matter because we dealt with the pattern layer.
absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So, and I'm still on the question, and then I'm just going to touch with Sam. Now, Sam, I know that you have interacted and then you've built some things on AI, and then you've worked on, you've done pretty much good works in that. But I just want to ask, what is the technical bottleneck that no one is talking about really? Um, from an infrastructure perspective, what are those bottlenecks that we don't really hear about? I mean, we just hear everything move smoothly, or even when people say they're rolling out agents, it sounds so, I mean, so easy, like out of the box. Are there technical bottlenecks that we need to be mindful of while we're looking at all of this? Sam,
Can you guys hear me?
yes, go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for that question. So, yes, there are, I would say, a number of technical bottlenecks from my perspective. Um, we could look at it from a geophysical perspective. We can look at it just from the technical perspective, but I'll just go a bit broad. So, technical bottlenecks, which we have, I personally and some people have found, is first of all is the use of AI, right? The technical use of it itself, not necessarily just saying, hey, I have a chat GPT, I have some kind of thing, and I'm just throwing, I'm throwing things at it. I'll give you one example. There was a situation where someone was using a personal version of an AI service, but then went ahead to literally copy business code or business IP into that public AI space, and was asking for was trying to vibe code or trying to solve problems. That's one technical bottleneck, right? Where there isn't any guardrails around what is the space or what is the boundaries of what I can put in there and what I'm protected from. That's just one side of it. We can also talk about infrastructure technical bottlenecks, right? Especially when it comes to governance and regulations for specific spaces. But with that said, is it, how do we define, right? How do we define that spaces for it? So
Mhm.
technically, apart from infrastructure, apart from the technical use of it, imagine if I'm a small startup somewhere, right? And even access to technology or even connectivity, which has been a bigger thing. And I'm speaking from the African perspective because this is where there's a lot of that. Um, I might not have reliable connectivity, right, to access some of these, models to perform the works that I want to do. So I'll be resorting to try to get local LLMs running, right? And then there's the conversation of some of these open source or local LLMs have got backdoors in them. So that is another technical bottleneck that surfaces because we're like, we're just basically consuming AI models and not doing introspection of, does this really sit for my use case, right? So from choosing or using the model, from the proper usage of it as developers, and even for business context, these are all technical challenges and bottlenecks that have to be addressed. Today, a lot of people or organizations are using AI without an AI policy,
Mm.
right? Without any AI governance. That in itself is a technical bottleneck. A lot of agencies or institutions are using AI without defining what the proper end goal is or what the proper outcome is. So there's no measure to say, are we even at this point using it properly to achieve the end goal? So we can classify all this as technical challenges or bottlenecks that is affecting not just the adoption but the proper use of AI.
All right. Thank you so much, Sam. So I'm still on that. You made mention of the African. So I mean, I think I have a question for you on that. When you made mention of our continent here, and I want to bring it home. And when we talk about AI agents, I mean, the other time I was having um a kind of show, and then I was quite amazed with the gap, the knowledge and gap around even AI agents, talk place of what AI is doing right now. People just know AI as ChatGPT and all of that,
Mm,
but that's a very good place to start with. But then beyond that, some people, even I'm talking about executives this time around, they don't even know what the use case applies to them. So I want to ask you this question: what unique opportunities do AI agents present in the Africa context? And why I'm asking this is because that differs from the Western enterprise context of how they use AI agents. What are the possibilities when it comes to the African context that we can say, oh, this is how it's going to play out for us here?
So thank you very much. It's interesting because so last year we ran AgentCon Accra, and I think you guys also ran AgentCon Nigeria. And for the first time in the Accra ecosystem, right, we had probably over 400, 500 people turn up because the conversation was AI, right? And the opportunities it provides for Africa. Believe it or not, Africa like we churn out a lot of data. I mean, across but specifically we churn out a lot of data. There is a gap, right, in how this data is collected and how the data is even used effectively. By happening to have a conversation with someone who was close to the Ghana Statistical Service, and the country statistician was saying that they collect a lot of data, but businesses and institutions are not making the proper use of the data. For example, and I'm sure this cuts across almost all the African countries, we have governments probably instituting policies and developmental programs, right? Most of these are not driven by data, right? Because it's either the demographic is I have a lot of I have a this area is noted to be my party's favorite sport, right? So when I'm doing development, that is where I would start from, right? There is opportunity to leverage the data and AI to be very um, focused and to help a better development. An example is in healthcare, right? In education, in finance, and even in governance itself. There's a lot of opportunity to leverage AI to be efficient, to be more responsive, and to drive development. Fun fact: so when we did AgentCon last year, there is this interesting person that I'll share his contact with. You need to meet him. He's Dr. Boysing. He has multiple PhDs and has been studying AI for a very long time. So I know this might come out as a bit surprising. When I saw it, immediately I was quite surprised. So I know MJ will frown on me for some for what I'm come to say. But don't worry, I'm not going to say anything about beer. This is something very important. So so whether we we have different beliefs and religious alignment, right? We also have traditional beliefs. We have traditional beliefs. We have other forms of religion. This guy and his team have been able to leverage AI. He calls it the Vision something framework, which is an AI based system. It actually does prophetic with AI. So you can literally ask it stuff about you, just like what religious prophecies do, and it is almost like somebody literally spoke or gave insight about you to this AI model to do that. This is not just rag, or this is grounded on some social media data. This was, look, when I experienced it, I was like, no, this is taking it to a different level. Let me give you another example. He's been able to use this AI model to predict accident and traffic on our expressway, and it's so accurate that before he leaves home, he literally has a conversation with the AI. I'm going into town today, right? These are the routes. What are the chances that I might be involved in an accident or there's going to be traffic? And almost about 80 to 90% of the time, this AI agent gets it right. That's just to say that it goes beyond just what we think or what we see. And just like Scott said, the development is moving fast, right? It is not necessarily changing the dynamics of it. It is how it's being leveraged. So for me, I see a lot of opportunities in healthcare, agriculture, governance, and even beyond just the normal sectors. And that's why I give you those two examples.
Okay, I think I'll stay with those examples, but I know you already said it. I will stay with the one of the forecast, but I mean, it is what it is for anyone, and I'm glad. So, I think this question is for Tosin, and then when I take this question, I'll leave um David to go on with the next question. So, Sam did make mention of something around technology. So, Tosin, from a board level accountability, where do you see transformation efforts failing? Is it at the technology integration level, the risk modeling, or from an executive oversight?
Okay. I think these are critical questions you've raised, and it actually could fail in any of those areas you've mentioned. And the reasons are because there are many. There are many. Now, and I'll try to give those reasons before delving into which of them could be a weak link. Now, depending on the risk appetite of the organization, depending on the innovation appetite of the organization, and depending on the technology capacity of the organization, the chain could break at any point. So in an organization that is tech savvy, they do a lot of things homegrown. They are even happy to host their LLM locally. I mean, I've seen an organization trying to host a Hadoop database, a NoSQL database in their data center, and they are successful at that. In that kind of organization, you're not going to have a technology problem in AI deployment or agent deployment. In that kind of organization, it would be something around the lines of risk or security, because for them to be tech savvy, it also means that they are not innovation averse. So they are the first adopters, they are tech savvy. It's a let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. And they're happy to rush to announce that we've done it and we're live and everybody's happy. But at what cost? So which means they could have done it without a security audit. They could have done it without a security maturity. They could have done it without evaluating all those things. Now, flip it to an industry where they are cautious, they are careful, they are always double checking their intentions. The organizational culture is not clean. Everybody's watching his back. So you want to do it, but you are thinking of, if I lose my job, what happens at the board meeting? What happens at that organizational level? And when that organization is not eager to adopt, then it's not risk at that point, because if they have an eager board member or eager CIO or eager CISO/CEO, for him to justify it before the board, what he's going to do is he's going to make sure all the risk boxes are checked green. Now, in that place, they're probably not going to deploy themselves because they are a very cautious organization. And of course, they may not even be tech savvy enough. Now, they might end up investing in the wrong tech. They might end up investing in someone who is using live bullets to learn how to shoot, which is the consultant may not actually be a great consultant and they may lose money. Or because they are generally tech averse or slow, they will probably fail at the tech or the adoption area. So the third one is the general one of adoption. Now, in an environment where tech is balanced, risk is, they are not too tech averse, their risk tolerance is medium, but they are not innovation savvy. Excuse me, they are not innovation savvy. Now, that is a big point of failure. They are going to be open to a lot of vulnerabilities, in the sense that, number one, they could fail at the tech level because they are probably going to have a one-eyed man in the land of the blind. Number two, they are probably going to fail at adopting it because they are late adopters. The technology might be too old or might have become obsolete before they adopt it, and they may now have to pay more for what they could have gotten cheaper sometimes. So at that point, it could fail at any level. So it could fail at security level or risk level. It could fail at the tech level. It could fail at the adoption level. It just depends on the kind of organization that we are looking at. Now, the kind of organization also could be industry dependent. It could be personality dependent. It could be dependent on a lot of factors. So it's not a silver bullet to say this is the silver bullet that is going to cause the failure. No, it could depend on many, many factors. And those factors could now cause issues along the line. And remember, as much as we have a lot of people who are intelligent, we are all still learning this thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. So I'm going to hand over to David, my co-host, to ask the next set of questions. The next set, yes, of questions.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Olanwaju is there. If Olanwaju is there, I've got a question for you. Otherwise, I can go to Scott.
Ola, are you there?
Okay, let me go to Scott and
Okay.
then I can come back to other. Okay, so very quick question, Scott. So one of the things that I like when I follow you on like social media is I can see that you make a conscious attempt to bring some form of sanity into the conversation around AI, where there's a lot of hype around, here's like this thing that I can do, like this, all these amazing things. And then I watch Scott, and Scott is like, okay, let's take a step back and let's go back to like the framing. What this thing is doing is just doing token prediction, and it's doing this and it's doing that. I really appreciate that, because again, that just helps to put like some grounding. So my question is actually related to a paper that yourself and Mark Rusinovich actually released recently. So I went through that briefly, and it sort of like ties in with another paper that I read at almost the same time. I read like an paper that was released by Anthropic, where they said what AI does to learning. And then after that, I saw you post on like your page where you said, oh, we have like this paper on redefining software engineering profession for AI. So one of the things that you mentioned was around like, people are framing the conversation around hiring seniors and automating junior tasks away, and the risk that comes with taking that mindset to its fundamental conclusion if we keep doing that. So my question would be, if you can just help us to understand like the premise behind that and some of like the challenges around that, but also a personal question in this case. If my role is to try to convince a CEO or a CFO to say, yeah, I mean, Scott and Mark has like this amazing potential solution for this challenge, you need to spend some money up front, hiring like these junior developers, and they hope that they may stay with you and everything like that. How do I go about convincing them to do that? Number one. And then number two would be, is this something that you think will probably be handed over to the education system versus companies saying, we're going to be the one taking over, like hiring this preceptor role and then hiring the junior roles to grow them? Or do you think at the end of the day, this will just essentially just end up back in the educational system?
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. So the context is that Mark Rusinovich and I wrote a paper for the ACM, the Communications of the ACM, which is a venerable communications organization around computing. You can find the paper at acm.org. And we propose something different from an apprenticeship or an internship. We propose what's called a preceptorship, which you may be familiar with in the context of nursing. So the power dynamics in an internship are such that you arrive at the company and suddenly you're an intern, you're an apprentice, and you have to dig your way out. But within the context of nursing and medicine, a preceptor is the senior nurse, and their job is literally to lift you up. So Mark and I propose that there will be a gap filled by people and companies who are trying to effectively have less junior engineers and replace them with agents. And that is short-sighted, because then you lose your pipeline of people who know what they're doing. And as that kind of window moves and people start to retire, you're going to have a gap in institutional knowledge. So we think that a formal preceptorship, apprenticeship style pathway is a already proven template. I think the question, to your point, is that something that is driven by universities, which tend to do research, but most line universities are not as up to date on the state of the art as a company, or is it an industry partnership with a university? And I think that the trick would be to make it so that a university has a partnership with industry such that a person can graduate and be virtually guaranteed a job, and we get into a more formal preceptorship, similar to what we see already with architecture and electricians and plumbers who join as a journey. They join as an apprentice and become a journeyman. Except we think that you should formally measure senior engineers on their ability to make more senior engineers. I know that's a long answer, but it's a nuanced one. The other thing that I wanted to call out is that you made the statement that my social media posts try to kind of keep it real and focus on the humanistic and human perspective on how we deal with this moment that we're in. I think that that's something that is an opportunity for Africa to lead in, because there's too many people who are trying to use AI as a straight up optimization for capitalism and to remove the human from the loop. And the only thing that matters is humans in the loop. And I think Africa is uniquely, as a continent, is uniquely has a neat perspective on that. If you think about the Bantu languages like Zulu and the concept of Ubuntu, right? And the phrase Ubuntu, Ngumuntu, Ngabantu means a person is a person through other persons. How does Africa wrestle with that context when now we have agents that can be anthropomorphized and feel like people? They are not people. They're not people, but they are here to help. So then we need to ask ourselves, what can an agent fix in Africa? What system properties exist in a uniquely African context that will make different agents? I think if you try to take global North agents and apply them to a global South context, you're going to be unhappy. But if you take things that are fundamentally differently architecturally around the African continent, mobile money, you're far advanced in mobile money. What does the agent look like in a mobile money context with an M-Pesa or an MTM or an Airtel? Can agents pay farmers? Can agents collect school fees? There's more languages on the continent than anywhere else. What is the conversation first context for somewhere that is so linguistically dense and so oral? One of Africa's strengths is the informality of business in a system where contracts are social and credit is reputational, so that an agent must know things like that, while they will work differently in the global North. So I would encourage us all to think about trying to make something uniquely African rather than trying to fit a random agent that North America has created to optimize something to its fullest.
Yeah, no,
I apologize for the long answer.
That's really, really, really powerful, Scott. No, thanks for sharing that. And I can say like the audience also resonates with that. So I have like a short follow-up with you, and maybe Dr. Milton can also speak to this, and then I have another question for Dr. Milton also. But part of like the answer that you mentioned in terms of the reason why human in the loops like still matter, and not just like just going towards like the over optimization of things. I guess from like an organization perspective, one of the challenges would be the competition. Like if we're not doing what everyone else is doing, then we're potentially missing out on some form of optimization where our competitors could be getting all these advantages while we are still trying to, keep like the humanistic aspect of things. Like how do we or organizations think about that? And maybe you can have, Scott, I would like to hear your comment on that, Scott, and then maybe Dr. Milton can also speak to that, and then I have another question after.
There's so many different analogies and ways to attack a question like that, but I think that the order of operations, the order in which things that has happened in the global South is different than that in the North. For example, Africa skipped laying copper wires and landlines and went directly to cellular, and has had excellent cellular and excellent mobile for a long time. And while the U.S. tries to build infrastructure kind of in a layer, Africa leapfrogs and leapfrogs and leapfrogs. And I would frame this as an opportunity for a leapfrog. However, I think we need to be clear-eyed about the systemic problems around infrastructure, and that giving someone an agent is great, but if they don't have reliable water and power, that agent is something that maybe that isn't required right now. So while you're worried about missing out, I think we should be thinking about how AI and agents can improve the base of the pyramid so that we have a good base to build upon, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, no,
curious what Dr.
definitely.
Maddox thinks about that.
Yeah. Yeah, please, do you have any comments on that, Dr. Newton?
I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Scott said. And I want to emphasize the human in the loop piece, right? We always think that when we're learning this new technology and all this, it's about the technology, it's about this, it's about agents, it's about vibing, it's about prompting, it's about the human. And making sure that we understand what we bring to the table, especially from an emotional intelligence perspective, that it's going to take, if ever, a long time to even get close to what we're able to do as toddlers when it comes to perception and things like this. And so I just agree with that completely. And from an African continent perspective, I also agree with what Scott stated in that, maybe it's not about trying to take something from somewhere else and then how you apply it there, but take what's uniquely African. Again, looking at the whole continent at this point, and you look at the value that you all bring to the table, that leapfrogging that Scott talked about, especially from a fintech perspective, and then the way that you're going to come at these things with different perspectives, you're going to bring something to AI that the rest of us are just not able to do. And you're adding to the conversation, if you will. Um, that's an opportunity like no other. And I look forward to, seeing what evolves in the, from an, African context on how we do these things and how we roll these things out and what you bring to the discussion. I think it's going to be so important. And then I'll end with this piece. We talked about, AI in healthcare, AI in education. Right now, education globally is still based out of the Industrial Revolution age, right? We were training people basically to work in factories and work in that sort of thing. Uh, the pedagogy or the way we learn, the way we teach has to change in this era. It has to change. And so that we can, actually leverage this thing to level up, right? I think we're going to move one standard deviation once we get past some of the things like, art students or people using AI for writing or they're using it for coding. Do I have the best AI detection tool and all of that? Who cares about all of that? The question is the output. What is the output and what's the quality of the output, and can you defend what you're doing? And so from an educational perspective, let's lean into it. The student using AI, the teachers using AI, the administrators and the implementers using AI to deliver, learning and training. And then let's maybe go back to what I call a Socratic model, that if you really want to know if the student has learned the material, then they have to sort of defend what they've said. They get people asking questions and saying, what about this? And what do you think about this? And how would you change this? How would you actually take the antithesis of this question and actually argue for the opposite of what you're doing? If the person truly understood what they presented in this paper that may have been AI written, they'll be able to defend it. If they don't understand it because they just had AI write whatever it is that they were doing, the assignment, then that'll come out loud and clear. And as students begin to understand that they have to defend, like Socrates stood up in the middle of an amphitheater and basically put it out there, that they have to defend what they're doing, they're going to truly learn it. And we get that one standard deviation where maybe the average person is doing thought experiments like an Einstein or like a Newton, in the 1600s. They're doing those types of things on average. And it's not the anomaly that we're getting these types of things. That's what AI is going to allow us to do, is to level up as a society. And my challenge to Africa is that take this, on, run with it. Look at maybe how you do some of these things, and you have this unique ability, in my opinion, to actually be able to move, not only what you do in applying AI to say fintech and things like that, as Scott mentioned, but also how you look at it from a pedagogical or education perspective, and then get everyone, leveled up so that we get scholars. We're already getting scholars from Africa, but we'll get scholars in numbers like you wouldn't believe, because they're leveraging the technology that AI has democratized, and that's access to this knowledge. And so this is one of those things, and I will stop here because I get so excited about this part. But I would. This is one of those things that I think that is where we need to go next, and stop worrying about all of this. Did they use AI? Did they not? Yeah, use it.
Yeah.
But do you understand it? And can you defend your use of it? Meaning whatever it is that you output it, and what's the quality of your output?
Yeah.
And I'll let it go at that.
No, that was really powerful, and again, I really appreciate that you brought up the fact of, the changing educational system to where we try to challenge more people being able to defend like what they're putting out, and because that seems to be the direction that things are flowing from an industry perspective. So more senior type level understanding, and then being able to like defend what you're doing. And actually, like I personally I experienced that a lot. And again, that's one of the reasons why it relates to like some of the concept covered in the paper that Scott and Mark wrote, where we're talking about. So someone prompted an AI agent and said, "Fix like this issue," and all the AI agent did was it just added a line of code to put it to sleep. And I went, yeah, that's it. It fixed, right? So you won't get the error message anymore. But I didn't really fix anything. I just put it to sleep. Whereas someone that doesn't understand what's going on will just go, "Oh, okay, I don't get the error anymore. Therefore, let's keep it moving." But someone that understands will go, "Hey, look how you've just introduced a bigger issue into this, based off of what you've done." Man, really appreciate that. I have another follow-up question for you, but I can see that Ola is back, so I think I'll come back to you, and I'll go to Ola for now. Mr. Ola, welcome back. I call you like the skills man. so because you're all about like skills and skills and skills. And I can see Sam, so I'll come to Sam in a minute. So my question to you is around like the workforce and what you're doing with regards to the community. So there's a lot of conversation about the roles being transitioning, especially knowledge-based role, transitioning to supervising agents versus doing tasks ourselves. So in that kind of a world, what skills are you seeing that, okay, these are like the non-negotiable skills that you need? Because in terms of the tasks that we are doing, that's constantly changing. You may be doing a task today and you don't need to do that in the next 3 months because AI agents have gotten very good at it. So all those tasks are constantly changing. So the tasks that you're doing is changing. So in this kind of world, what are the non-negotiables in terms of skills that people need to have?
Well, thanks a lot. So I just need to minimize the noise here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
All right. Yeah, apologies that I wasn't going to table his money around here for me. And yeah, that's a very valid question. And we've said this before, we've seen it that since AI and large language model kind of become mainstream, everybody becomes a learner for the very first time. We've seen this change constantly in the way we work. And but I especially what you used to do before is constantly changing because there's potential for your team members now using AI, and you have to be very careful. If you ask for a report, for example, as a manager, and your team members will have different AI solution rolled out, there's higher chances that they've used AI first to get the first draft and probably give that to you. So you have to read with that mindset to be sure that those people who use AI might not even have reviewed what they've written to a very large extent. There are many who just throw those things to approve the AI services in the organization and then reports it, just send it to the manager. Who, for example, if care is not taken, if they take that and consume it just as it is and go ahead and submit the report, if there's any issue, the responsibility kind of fall to the manager now who is not cautious enough to just go through the content or whatsoever was submitted. But I'm just going to list some non-negotiable skills, which are first critical thinking, being able to ask the right questions and understand what good output looks like. And this cut across every layer, from individual contributor to managers, to C-suite level. Being able to ask the right set of questions and know what good output looks like. For your direct report that are using AI, are they able to tell what the right results should look like? And I'm just going to cite an example where people kind of have today an AI agent that review in their voice, in their personality. And you have a manager who every time needs to submit a report. And in this case, instead of me every time going through that report, because of the touch point I have with the business, I've built an agent that can review that report in my tone and look out for the things I will have naturally look out for. Um, and when you have that is AI in between your workflow, and when people come in and submit a report, it goes through that report, could evaluate what is not right and provide that kind of proactive feedback before it finally get back to you. That ability to say, okay, I need to put something in between in some instances where even the primary result, the input that is coming from my team can be further reviewed before I look at, knowing fully well they might use AI and they might not critically go through it the way you want the result to be. So ability to think through that and say, okay, what does good output looks like for each of the things that we are working on? Because if you can't evaluate what the agent gives you as individual, as manager, you are not supervising it. And we need to be at the point of supervising what agent can do. If you are writing code, like you mentioned in that example, fix this line and you put it to sleep. If you can't supervise and you can't evaluate what it did, you are unable to, you don't even know you thought it's fixed, but that's actually create another issue. So our ability to evaluate quality output, what is the end goal? And has that goal been achieved is going to be very critical. Because the task also keep changing, ability to break down problem, define what success looks like. If you can today, you can one shot many things with AI in the workplace, build a process, in write code, the application or tool by just describing something. But if you're unable to define the task, the problem very well, it will limit the quality of output you get. So being able to break down problems, so that solution thinking, system thinking is still a very valuable skill in this age. At different category, as a manager, as an individual contributor, if you cannot define critically the problem and break it down as the way you will want to solve it, it's going to limit the quality of output. And even as you interact with it in workplace at a different point in time, you still have to think through. If you're using AI to do note keeping, if you are not breaking tasks down enough, you realize that in the final transcript is unable to assign tasks enough because there's some context that is missing, and it still has to do with first critical thinking, able to evaluate what quality output is, and two, being able to break down a good problem solving skills. If you know how it should be done, you are just not doing it, but describe how it should be done. And when you describe how it should be done, then you are sure that the result, and you have the skill to evaluate the output. And when you describe how it should be done, and you can evaluate the output, you get a much more better result. And this cut across different ways that we use AI in workplace today. I'll just touch on that topic.
No, that's very, yeah, that's very, very useful. And thanks very much for that. And from what you just said now, so it leads back to what Dr. Milton just said, and what Scott also said, which is like a higher level of understanding will be needed going forward, because we have to have a pipeline of people that can evaluate the output of many of these these new capabilities that we have, and then being able to make sure that they're still in alignment in terms of what we're defining for it to do. That's very powerful. Okay, so I'll let MJ pick things up.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been I mean, it's been a very insightful discussion since we've been going on. All right, so, but I'm going to throw this question to everyone, and it's going to be some sort of, well, I want all of our panelists to debate on it really. And this is the question. Are current alignment techniques sufficient for multi-agent system, or we are applying single model safety logic to fundamentally different architectures? So, I mean, I'm going to break it down because I know it's a lot of words I've put there. So imagine you build a perfectly aligned self-driving car, right? You've trained it to say, follow traffic laws, avoid collision, respect speed limit, prioritize passenger safety. Now, that's like aligning a single AI model using techniques from labs like probably OpenAI or Anthropic. We'll be talking about that. Now, imagine instead of that one car, you deploy 10,000 autonomous cars that can communicate with each other, that can coordinate routes, optimize traffic flow, negotiate right of way, or even share live updates. Now, individually, each car is safe, but collectively, they might form some of congestion patterns. They might create some systemic gridlock and all of that. So the problem is the traffic system safe when thousands of autonomous agents interact? We've gotten better at aligning the driver, but we are still learning how to govern the traffic. So which brings me now to the question I was asking. We've gotten better at saying that we're creating agents. I mean, like I said, I was using Codex a few days ago, and I see even Claude, where you have, sub-agents, query sub-agents, and then you see agents transferring to one another and then asking each other questions. So the debate here is, are current alignment techniques sufficient for multi-agent system, or we're just applying some sort of single model safety logic to different architectures? So I'm going to be starting with you, Scott.
I guess I would need more context because I don't understand the context of the question where you used an example of self-driving cars and then put them in a system. You're trying to explain the emergent behaviors of AIs when
So what I
they're put
was
into a
saying
larger
is,
system?
yeah. So what I was saying is that when you train a single car, let's say you train a single car, it can actually on its own be able to learn the patterns of the road, traffic congestion, and all of that. Individually, the car behaves safe. But when collectively they come together, I mean, they might force some sort of congestion around the patterns of behavior or even coordinating way the designers never predicted. I mean, you have Claude today, you have Codex, you have Anthropic, all of that coming together. So the question is, the traffic system may be safe when thousands of autonomous agents are reacting. Do we have it, or we've gotten to a situation where we're just applying one single model to every different? Yeah. I hope you get it now.
No, I understand. I think
All
that's
right.
a complicated question. I could probably teach a class on it. I'm thinking about, there's a great example that was done in how traffic jams get created in Japan, where you had a bunch of cars driving in a circle and they all drive at the exact same speed and everything's perfect. And then for some reason, somebody taps their brake or they go a little too fast, a little too slow, and then you start seeing a ripple and they're driving in a circle. To be clear, by definition, there cannot be a traffic jam driving in a circle. But all it took is one car to tap their brakes, and then there's this ripple effect as this kind of caterpillar in a circle starts to get slow, and it can't be stable by virtue of the fact that there's randomization, the humans, in that world. There is, by definition, randomization within agents because agents are ambiguity loops. If it was a coded deterministic algorithm, then you would have perfect traffic. But agents introduce ambiguity, which means they introduce randomness. And I think the challenge for us as humans is that we're going to look at that and we're going to assume malintent. We're going to see collective behavior and assume collective intelligence. And I go back to my example about the ants, right? One ant isn't smart. It has directional, it seeks a task to be completed, but then collective behavior when all of the ants are perceived looks like a swarm. whether it be a swarm of bees or a flock of birds or a bunch of ants that appear to show collective behavior, there is system level structure, but there's no one agent that intentionally has a goal or a macro outcome. And I think that Kubernetes for agents has yet to be designed in a way that is going to be clear and understandable for all of us humans. So you're definitely describing a science fiction future.
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Milton, do you have any input there, or do you want to suggest something? I don't have.
Yes, sure. I actually see this a lot, not to the level that you described, but I see it a lot in my own company where we are creating agents at a micro level to do something that we're working on, and then we're not really looking at it from a higher view. So I would come at this from a slightly different perspective in that we want to look at, you have the agents that are being designed sort of autonomously, and you will get what Scott talked about, especially as it comes to the ambiguous behavior at the agent level. And then you want to take a step up and then have maybe another agent or maybe a human looking at the context of what they're all doing together and how they're interacting. And then we have our own specs to look at, aberrant behavior and this sort of thing. Somebody tap the brake, as Scott mentioned. And then what that really means is it a one-off or is it some sort of regular pattern? And then, again, we have the agentic level, we have the contextual level. Then I'm going to go one level up and say we have the architectural level that's looking at how the entire system is not only working together, but how it interacts with external things that are coming into the system. Because most of the time these things are looking at from a closed system perspective, and then the architectural level look at it from an open systems and then see what the impact is. I don't think we're at that level yet. We seem to think that AI is some sort of different type of technology, that all the things that we've learned in the past over the last 150 years on how you design and architect systems are sort of gone, right? And it's like some of those things that we learned to do is still important, especially architectural views and how you do these things. But I would say that, yeah, you want to design, at the micro level for agents. You want to have another layer that looks at the context of how all those things are working together, internally to the system. And then you want to have an architectural layer that looks at what are the external inputs that might actually also impact the system. And then have documented metrics and governance around each of those layers so that we understand what it is that they're doing. And then we do the old thing where you take the feedback, the output, and feed it back into the input and continuously learning so that the system always get better. And you make sure that there's a human or humans in the loop that are actually making sure that the system is doing the things that we need to do and capture the nuance that AI generally is lacking at capture. Maybe someday we can create a nuance algorithm that's actually, works. Maybe I'm not sure about that, but the humans actually look at the nuance and make sure that every layer that nuance is actually being identified. So I think that we do need the structure, but folks are many people, many companies are just not thinking at this level yet. They just want, what's the next best model? How well am I doing on all of the model type tests that they do out there? Those things are great, but to me, I think we have to step it up a layer. And we have to at least move to the context layer, which since 2026, we are focusing on context engineering. But beyond that, it's going to be what I'm defining as the architectural layer that looks at the external inputs. I think those things have to be thought about, including the governance of all of those things, which we talked about at the onset. But that's the way I look at it. And we're building that internally because the teams are so focused on the micro agent layer that they're actually missing some of the big things that we're trying to achieve. And that is, are people learning? Are they comprehending? Are they mastering this stuff that we're teaching? And the teams come back and say, well, but this agent is so beautiful. It's like, yeah, but did it achieve the goal? Right. And if the people aren't learning from ours, the material that we put out there, then what's the point? Right. And so I don't care how pretty it looks, I don't care how beautiful it is, or how elegant the design if people aren't learning. And so that took us to this layered approach that I just described.
Absolutely. And that's something that is it's something for organization. So when you're dealing from an enterprise level to actually think about, and then most importantly, I think it's quite very important that AI agents are actually treated as critical infrastructure. One doesn't just look at it like, oh, it's something abstract or something that is just going to help you just solve that problem and all of that. But the mindset shift around how we take this technology is also going to help in a long way. The way we plan around it, we set the right guardrails and all of that. Um, I know that today we have agents talking to one another, and those are things that we started seeing. I mean, for me, I've seen it a lot, but and it's mind blowing, to be honest, mind blowing, because when you see I'm using one model, and then the model is saying I'm calling another sub agent, and then and all of that, and then you see what is coming out in a matter of minutes or seconds. It's actually mind blowing. But I want to ask this. I mean, Tosin, I'm going to come to you, and the question I have is, do you think we are close to AI agents really, I'm using the word really, that they can manage other AI agents reliably, or it is still theoretical? I mean, it's just something that's I mean, we're just thinking about it in a theoretical manner. Are we really, really, really sure that AI agents today can manage any other AI agents? Because we've seen that interaction and we've seen that loop or that level of autonomous handover, to be honest. Maybe that's the right word I should use. That level of autonomous handover to, oh, I hand over this to another agent to take care of. Do you think AI agents can really manage each other?
So just to latch on the extensive expose by Dr. Milton, all we have learned in the past 150, 300 years is not going to waste. And there's always the concept of architecture. There's always the concept of governance. And there's always the concept of deployment. That's number one that I'm going to say. So when we talk of governance and deployment, it's still managing operations of what we've designed. That's number one. Number two is, let us not think that these agents that are blowing our minds are UFOs that landed from another planet. They are still code. So if Agent 1 can autonomously hand over stuff to Agent X, and X hands over to Agent N, it's because of what I told it to do and what it has learned. The same way, Agent overall can manage Agent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, N, and X, if that is what I tell it to do. Now, I'll go borrow from Scott's analogy of ants, but I wouldn't use ants, I would use children. Now, if you have children that you've trained to be babies and normal children, then as much as those children begin to be normal children, take a bath, make their food, dress up, clean up after themselves, make their beds, they do it very well. But if you train children to be supervisors, Spartans, pre-Olympics, basketball, pre-college basketball students, or the next Ronaldo or the next Messi, or the captain of a star team, an all-star football team. Same age, same child, different training. Do they deliver? Yes, they deliver.
Yes, they do.
So the same thing is going to happen if you have agents that are trained to go to manage, then they will deliver. So again, I like to say that I love AI. I appreciate the great things it's doing, but I see it first as intelligent code. And when you look back to deep learning, machine learning, clustering, classifications, which are the basic day one fundamentals of AI, the answer is yes, and it can be managed, and it's not a disaster. Make sense?
Yeah, I can see that we have like comments. You know, if we've got Ola and Scott wanted to comment on that. So please, yeah, go for it, Ola.
Yeah, okay. All right. So I just want to add a thought to the concept of managing AI, and each, I mean, a super agent managing the other sub agent. Well, we've already started exploring the concept of LLM as a judge, where a large language model is also judging the work of other sub-agents, and that is architecturally, that's more or less what is being used in sub-agents, where the parent agent is also judging the decisions and the output from others. But as reliable as that might sound, the only challenge I have with that is still the undeterministic nature of LLM. If you can, we can't tell when they will ever make mistake or wrong judgment, no matter how accurate or how good they are. So even as we code them, the nature of the coding for LLM is not deterministic. So and that introduces a risk, the fact that it can make mistake, but you never can tell at what point exactly is it going to make mistake. We have observability solutions today, but even at that is to put a system around it. So my take is I believe a new architecture is going to evolve that makes it easier to capture the undeterministic nature of the current LLM we have. And the moment that kicks in, we can say with much more confidence that this LLM as a judge can now become scalable with lesser risk. Today, it's working, it's fitting in some scenario, but the fact that you cannot tell when they will ever make mistakes, at what point, that is the main risk that makes it not so much great today.
No, that's very, very useful. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, please go for it, Scott, also.
So, okay, so you said you wanted a debate. So you said you want it spicy. So I'll bring it spicy. With all due respect to my my esteemed colleagues on the panel here, I respectfully disagree with Tosin's children analogy because agents are far closer to ants. Children have biological drive, they have survival instinct, they have emotions, they have self-awareness, they learn in real time. AI agents have none of those things. Agents are closer to swarm components. Children's have inner curiosity, fear, identity formation. They have long-term memory. Agents don't want anything. Agents say, I will try to complete this task efficiently, and they do that by generating next tokens that fit the prompt context. But if they're not prompted, they have nothing. And I think that the challenge is when we anthropomorphize agents, when we start to think about agents as being children or even ants, the analogies break down because human beings strive for hierarchy and they look for hierarchy in meaning and they think to themselves, I've added a manager agent. And you feel like you have introduced a mind at the top, but you've just added another node to the graph. And in a multi-agent system, the manager agent is just breaking down tasks and it feels hierarchical, but it's still a prompt. It's still an LLM. It's another ant. It's not even a queen. It's just another one. So I don't think it changes it changes the shape, but it doesn't change the ontology. And you'll still get coordination and tree-like coordination. So I would challenge us to find new analogies because humans try to find analogies to express how they feel so that they can break things down and they can say, oh, that's just like ants, or that's just like children. But I would argue with Tosin that both of our analogies are basically not good analogies.
So
Yeah.
Scott,
Yeah.
I
Thanks,
mean, I'm
Scott.
gonna ask you something on that. I mean, very, very, very good input there. So now that we hear that AI trying to make decisions, they have emotions on their own, because you know you've been having situations where you hear all of this narrative that AI right now again is they are having emotions, and they can actually they can act like human. What do you say, that is that a wrong narrative, or is just a sort of imagination of people and share that narrative? Well, what do you say to that?
If this is a silly question, but I'm curious in your country if you have any parrots. If parrots, like if someone has a bird as a pet, and the bird then speaks because like your aunt or
Yes,
your
we have
uncle has a
parrots.
parrot.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
So like I had an uncle who had a parrot, but my uncle also swore a lot. So you'd go over there and you'd hear the parrot in the other room going, ah, how's it going? Ah, and he'd say foul language. And we try to understand, why is this parrot such an asshole? It's like, because my uncle was an asshole. The parrot has no goal-seeking behavior. It simply repeats what it is taught. Agents have no emotion. Agents have emergent behaviors that are swarmed, and we look at them and we say, wow, that parrot must be really smart. Maybe he was in the Navy and that's why he swears so much. No, he was simply around people who swore. So agents are simply ourselves in the mirror. So you're talking to yourself. And if you think it has emotions, you should look at yourself before you look at the agent.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm.
That's a great one.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's a really good one. Yeah, and to take that like a step further, like what's called extreme now. So in this midst of now of all the hype that's surrounding that, uh, being grounded in the reality of what these things are and what they can do in an enterprise context, what does responsibility look like?
Hmm.
So like
Yeah.
oh, you're responsible for, oh, okay, this broken something and done this damage. And especially with this conversation around, oh, at the moment what we currently have is we have humans that are managing agents, but then at some point it's going to flip around where we'll have like agents, and then we'll just be
So,
like humans like doing something there.
David, in 1979, IBM's training manual, the training manual that the IBM mainframe would hand you, said a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
1979. AI agents, if something goes wrong, it's on you.
Period.
It's on David specifically. No, but my point is that if I go to work for Dr. Milton's company and I accidentally drop the database table in production, is that my fault, the agent's fault, or Dr. Milton's fault? Ultimately, he's the boss. It's his fault because he set up a system where I, as a junior engineer, somehow had access to production.
But what if I say like then, Scott, and I say, but I specifically gave the agent an instruction to say, do not drop database tables. I told the agent, so I've done
But
my own part.
I also told my intern, and I was their manager. Is it the intern's fault, or am I a bad manager? You can't load a you can't load a gun, teach them how to shoot it, point it at their foot, and say, promise me you won't shoot yourself in the foot. It is always cheaper to pull the bullets from the gun than to wear a bulletproof vest.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the responsible use of all of these. And so, final word from all of you. How would you advise our audience that are looking at, oh, we want to I think that I'm hearing, I mean, this is sounding very interesting, and I want to try this out of my organization. What are the things you're going to tell them in trying to set up or to adopt not AI this time around? Yes, because at the end of the day, you're going to extend that functionality to agents and all of that. So what's your final word for each of our, I mean, for our audience?
I'll say one word and then I'll cede the stage. Get your own house in order before you let an agent into your home.
Absolutely. Spot on. Thank you so much. Dr. Milton?
I agree. And I look at it as, again, from frameworks, I like to have organizations measure whether or not they're AI ready. And then once they understand that they're AI ready, their data, their systems, or do they have measures in place? Do they have repeatable processes and all of these things? Once they get past that, they want to measure the AI maturity level of the organization, much like the capability maturity model of old, from the back in the day from Carnegie Mellon. But you would then take a look at it and say, are we AI ready? Yes, we are. And this hopefully you have a measurable way of doing that. And then what's our level? And then make sure that you have a way to get from one level to the next level. But all of these things have to be done under some sort of governance framework that says what's the intent, what it is that we're trying to achieve, how do we measure success at the corporate level, how you measure return on investment, at a more human level, how you measure the return on your human people that you have in the organization, and are they thriving and things like that. And then are our leaders able to manage these individuals, because leaders, probably contrary to what they think is going to happen in the AI era, they're going to be required to be even more human and to tap into the emotional intelligence, right? Because what do you do when people have all this, excess time? What do you do with them? What do you do when a human comes to you and says, "Hey, I got some other issues," that you have to go back to doing what we used to do back in the day, and that's manage people, lead people, and understand these things, as opposed to you do this, you do that, and just be directing and giving orders based on your hierarchical status. We're going to have to go back and be human. So make sure all of those things are in place. But to sum it up, I think Scott did it very well. Get your own house in order, and then you'll be ready to go before you start introducing other things. That's the essence of the message.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Tosi?
A lot has been said already, and there's no point reinventing the wheel. Like you said, get your house in order. Make sure you're AI ready. Again, AI is not a magic wand. It is an enabler. It is an augmenter, and it is an enhancer. So let's go back to basics. Garbage in, garbage out. If you give it garbage, you get garbage out of it. So that's it. So of course, number one. And then number two is, in all that, don't rush to do AI. Try to make sure that you are applying AI where it matters most, where it matters most, where it matters most. And always don't be afraid to do it, because it will help you and save you a lot. So yeah, so get your house in order, do your basic assessment to make sure you're AI ready, your data is good, do your assessment, your profitability assessment, and make sure it is working where it matters most. So don't do chat GPT because it's the boss. Your own requirement might just be
Different.
loans. Your own requirement might be content creation. Your own requirement might be, for me, it's saving costs. I have a project I'm working on now, and I've been interviewing people to work for me. And then they are coming to me with the most ridiculous prices. And I don't think I'm going to talk to any of them. I'm just going to sit down for X hours and I'm going to write the code. And probably going to do it myself. And it's going to save me tons. So that is my reality. For another person, it is process and people. In some sad cases, it's firing some other people.
I hear that. Ola, do you have anything to add to what has been said already?
Yes, I want to speak to. I'm glad that this opportunity will allow me to talk to the leaders, CTOs in African space. I want to encourage them to be hungry to learn again. I've hosted several events in Africa. I've hosted several events, and the population we see right there in the technical event are young guys.
Mm-hmm.
We need the CTOs, the managers, let them go back to tech conferences again and catch up with this thing. They are not turning up probably because the culture in Africa is being, the young one that
More
need
of
promotion, they're
operation.
the one looking for knowledge. They are wondering, but over here in the Western world, I mean, I've met Scott in several events, and you see people
Mm-hmm.
at different phases of your career, you keep turning up for those technical events because you need those knowledge to keep advancing, to keep, knowing what is happening. In Africa, it's not so. So this is a very good
Yeah.
opportunity for me. And this age where everybody is almost back to being learner, they have to be out there too. Go out there
Mm-hmm.
to those tech events, go learn, go see what people are building. Without those knowledge, it's going to be difficult for you to truly drive value with AI agent within your organization. I just want to address that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I completely 100% agree with you. You know, right. David, do you have anything before
No,
I
I just
draw the
wanted to say,
curtain?
I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone. Thanks very much, Scott, for taking the time very, very early. Your time again. I'm not sure like how you did. I actually have like a very, very sad story. I remember of meeting meeting Scott at one of the Microsoft Ignite events because they're always pulling on Scott and also like Dr. Milton. Because I remember like it was like a Microsoft Ignite event and Scott has had a very busy day. You can see on his face was very tired, and he was
Mm-hmm.
just coming down and he was like, man, and he saw me and I was like. Scott was like, "Oh, I'm so thirsty." And my immediate reaction was, "Can I have a picture with you?" And later I was like, "Oh my God." I didn't even go, "Can I go get you some water or something like that?" But Scott was like, "Yeah, sure." So I just wanted to
Yeah.
say thank you for, even
Yeah.
though we
That's
keep
good for
like
you.
putting like all of this stuff, like you still like, showing up, really appreciate it. Dr. Milton also, very early your time, really, really appreciate it. Amazing insights. I've made a lot of notes and, definitely I'll be looking back to this video to try to get some more. Mr. Tosi, Mr. Ola, the skills man, again, thanks very much. It's been really, really useful. Really appreciate everything.
Thank you. And that is where we draw the curtain for this month's C-Suite Corner with MJ. Just a little bit of wrap up. AI agents represent one of the most powerful technology shifts of our time. They are not just tools, they are decision system. The question is not whether autonomy will increase, it will definitely increase. I think the real question is whether governance, accountability, and control mechanisms will evolve at the same space. Innovation without responsibility creates instability. Governance without innovation creates stagnation. The future belongs to every one of us who can balance both. Thank you once again for joining this session and see you next month. And hopefully, I can get to invite Dr. Milton and and Scott. Scott, I'm giving you a doctorate degree, and Scott another time.
I think
Thank
I'm not
you
sure if you
so
know,
much.
but you know that Scott is actually a professor, or you used to be a professor, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I don't
Scott
know a
is a
lot of things
professor.
about Scott.
No, yeah, Scott is a professor. Because I
Are
remember
you
seeing that. I was like,
serious?
yeah, yes.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate. I really appreciate. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful. Yeah.
Yes.
And send me
Thanks,
well to my
everyone.
sister, Scott. Bye.
Yes. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Dr.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Milton. Thanks
everyone.
very much, Scott. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.